Today we're doing a August market update, but we're going to talk about things that have happened in the last 2 weeks that nobody knows about yet that are changing the real estate market in the Boise area.
We're going to go through interest rates, inventory, builder incentives, and at the end, go through the most popular questions that we've been getting asked, including should you buy in 2025 or wait until 2026. So as most of you know, here at Boise Real Estate Insights, Brady, myself, Jesse, we are here to try and provide you as much local information as possible, things that are happening here around the Treasure Valley, Boise area that will affect you and the real estate market is potential homeowners or current homeowners here. Obviously, a lot of the info is going to be helpful for people out of state as well, but really we're going to key in and hone in on what local changes are happening, as well as, like today, we're going to talk through what the market is showing us.
100%, yeah. And if you guys have questions, obviously put comments down below. We try and answer as many or most comments. And if you guys reach out, shoot us a text, know that you get me and Jesse or me or Jesse. We're not going to pass you off to any of the other agents on our team. We truly believe in building relationships, and that if you guys build trust with us watching our videos, that you deserve to work with us. And so know that you get that, and know that hopefully you get lifelong friends and lifelong advisors in your entire process of buying or selling. Or if you just want to sit down for coffee with us and just chat real estate, put a plan together. Maybe you're not even decided on buying or selling. We're happy to meet with you guys too. So.
Yeah, and especially for videos like this, we know a lot of people watching might not be like actively in the market to buy or sell their home.
Yep.
So still reach out. We like to, again, create those long-term relationships where you might be 1 year out, 2 year out. Maybe it never does pan out or work out for you, but let's have that conversation and at least to answer the questions you guys might have, so you're not going completely alone figuring out this very, very dynamic and complicated real estate world we're in right now.
100%, yeah, it's getting very complicated. And like today, there's always going to be inventory and interest rates, so we'll talk through those. We'll talk about a lot of what we want to really hit on in these videos is what we're seeing day to day, because you can look up the statistics and see what the stats say, but a lot of times those are very delayed. And so we're trying to make these videos to where, because me and Jesse are out there pretty much every day, either showing houses or selling houses, and so we can see what the activity is talking to builders. And so the first topic we wanted to touch on is inventory levels. What we're seeing in Boise, whether that's inventory of new construction or inventory of resale homes here in the valley. And I'd say things have shifted this month, even though the data hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so one with data or any statistics, especially when it's a news article versus just purely this is the raw data, can be skewed and spun any different way. Again, by Brady and I being out there along with the team of agents that we run, we get immediate feedback on all different price points from all different parts of town of what we're actually seeing, and that's what we're going to share. So in terms of the actual, the legitimate raw data from June to July, we did see an increase in inventory, and what's kind of interesting is specifically with resale homes. So new construction went up a tiny bit, but it was pretty flat percentage wise. Resale homes went up
year over year. Resale homes is where the inventory is coming from. Yeah,
my mistake. So June or July of last year to June or July of this year, resale homes went up about 30%, and we'll kind of comment as to why that is. But what we're seeing from July till today, which is about end of August, is inventory is starting to fly off the shelf.
Yeah, we've noticed that we were talking with some buyers looking, doing home searches, looking for homes that people want to buy. In June and July, there was plenty of options. And now in August, we've started to notice that when you go to look at houses, there's very few options, and it's both resale and new construction. As an example, Heron River and Star, there's some clients looking in there, and there were 7 or 8 homes for sale in July. Went back last week to look in there, and there was, I think, 2, maybe 3 homes left in there. And you could go down the line in a lot of communities, and that's the case. And sometimes it seems like the ones that are continuing to sit are the ones that aren't priced right or just sat on the market too long and things happen. And then even in new construction too, right? We're seeing the same thing with inventory in a lot of those communities.
Yeah, exactly. And to use a specific example, there's a community in North Eagle, Whitehurst, and a beautiful community, homes, high 8s to 1.2 million. let's say beginning of July, there's 5 or 6 under construction or of currently finished and available homes to go purchase. There's 2 now.
Yeah.
And all 3 of those went went pending in the last 30 days.
Yeah.
And in talking with the builder, they're like, honestly, we only have 2 left. We didn't even plan to start anymore because it was a little bit slower of a summer, and now we're like completely out.
Yep.
And that's where these inventory changes can happen so quickly that for those that are trying to time the market, you just can't, because how can you predict 1 month all the inventory in a particular neighborhood you're looking for is going to be gone, and now you and 3 other people are going to be fighting for the last few custom builds available.
Yep.
Or waiting another 8 to 9 months because they haven't started another home because there hasn't really been a need to, because they don't want to oversupply the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll talk about why this is, what we've seen, because it really has just been, today is August 27th when we're filming this, so hopefully we can get this out by next week. It's really happened in the last week or 2 that I'd say we've seen this really big shift, and we'll talk about why. So now we can go into, we'll start going into the interest rates, and then also just, sales and activity that we're seeing within each of these communities we've talked about.
Yeah, and again, at the very end, we'll be answering questions that a lot of you have asked, that we get asked as we meet with our clients and just potential real estate connections. So definitely stay for the end, where we'll go over the most common questions we're seeing right now and give you an answer to those.
Yep. Okay, now going from inventory over to interest rates, which I would say is probably the bigger topic right now, which seems like every month it tends to be. But now it's been bigger than it had been before, partially due to Jerome Powell, his speech at Jackson Hole. It went in a direction to where there's a much higher chance of the federal interest rate coming down in September 17th, 18th when they meet. So that's impacted things a lot. And want to dive into that because I think a big thing with interest rates is there's a lot of misconceptions with what that means for mortgage rates, how that actually impacts it, when the timing of that impact is. And then we can also dive into just talking again about interest rates over the course of the year and stuff. But for now, interest rates September 17th and 18th for the Federal Reserve are predicted to go down. I think it's like an 80% chance now.
Yeah, seems pretty likely that they are going to cut, again, the federal short-term lending interest rate, which is not the same or directly connected to mortgage rates. So that's where I think the biggest misconception is when people hear rate cut and they're talking real estate. They're like, ooh, okay, automatically, if the September they drop it 1/4% or who knows, maybe 0.5%, mortgage rates are automatically going to do that at the same time, and that's not the case because they are not the same. The federal rate that, again, Jerome Powell and most people in the news are talking about is credit cards, bank lending rates essentially. So short-term credit.
Your high yield savings account. So when the Fed drops rate, that means your high yield savings account goes from 3% to 2%, and so now you're not getting that yield. It's a bank to bank percentage. That's what the federal interest rate is. It's what they can loan money at essentially to other banks. Versus mortgage rates, that's highly related to mortgage bonds and it's completely separate.
Exactly, a more global scale actually. And again, they are separate. They do tend to trend with each other on a zoomed out look. Not every day are they obviously going back and forth. So what could happen in September and what we are seeing right now is mortgage interest rates are starting to already account for a potential drop in September, or at least the news of that. So we are seeing rates coming down a little bit. So that doesn't mean in September we can guarantee or expect that they're going to drop significantly then. We've actually seen that they bump up for a few days or a week after that, just depending on what the rest of Jerome Powell's speech looks like. So a lot of times all these things we're talking about are speculation, where even if they drop that, what does he say after that September drop? Are there going to be more? Are they going to be less? Is he still super concerned with inflation? That conversation is going to drive where mortgage rates go, more so than just the actual potential cut in September.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like we've already probably seen the mortgage interest rate drop already priced in. This is usually what happens. It was his speech at Jackson Hole usually the market knows what's going to happen or can predict what's going to happen at these meetings. And so they price in the mortgage interest rate drops 2 weeks to a month before. And we saw this in the spring a lot too, where right now we're at an all-time low for interest rates over the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. Like it's the lowest it's been in almost 2 years. And that's because they're predicting what's happening in September. In the spring, like Jesse said, we saw this exact same scenario where interest rates were coming down before a Fed meeting. When they actually dropped the federal interest rate, mortgage rates went up. And it was partially due to what he said after the meeting. But so I wouldn't, some people assume that, you know, when they meet in September that now mortgage rates are going to continue to go down, but I wouldn't necessarily plan for that is kind of what I would say.
Yes, and don't make a financial decision off speculation on interest rates. we don't recommend that,
No.
even though some agents or lenders might.
Yes. And going to now, over the last 2 weeks, we're at, you know, 2-year lows. That is a big reason why we're starting to see a big increase in activity in Boise. Even though they went from, you know, 7% or 6.75 down to 6.5%, that 0.25% is enough to just get enough buyers back into the market, get enough people excited to start buying again. And so the interest rate is obviously highly correlated to home sales, but it's not what people think, where it needs to come down a whole percent before you see that activity. There's some times where even just a 0.1% dip is enough to push people back into the market. And so over the last 2 weeks with this 0.25% drop, we've seen a huge increase in activity.
Yeah. And part of, I mean, a lot of it is the actual numbers. The other, I would say almost half of it is just purely emotion and optimism. Yeah. When you see more things, or people are talking about more real estate in a positive light as interest rates come down, or the economy in general goes up. You know, the stock market has been kind of a shark tooth the last couple of weeks, but I mean, it's up. Crypto is up. When people are seeing, oh, my money's starting to make money, these big purchases like real estate start to come top of mind again. And we're seeing all of that feed into a much busier, I mean, significantly busier last 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, and that feeds on what we talked about with inventory, where part of the inventory dips are partially due to this increase in activity. Even just going out and showing homes over, I'd say, the last week. Where a month ago we'd go into a new construction community and we wouldn't really run into anybody, or might run into one person. Over the last week, it's been like 3, 4, 5 other people are out there looking at houses too. And so it's even just on like boots on the ground noticeable in the increase in activity. And I would say that come Labor Day, so in between now when we're filming this right now and when this video comes out, Labor Day is going to hit. There's a lot of people coming to visit Boise because a lot of the market in Boise is relocation. And Labor Day is a very popular weekend for everybody to come out here and either buy a house or look to buy a house. So with this interest rate drop combined with that, it's going to be interesting to see what happens this weekend.
For sure. Yep. And also something with, again, a lot of the buyers coming in being relocating from other states. And it's not something we talk about a lot because it's not really our lane, obviously. It's not real estate related, but the states that a lot of these individuals are leaving from seem to continue to push people out, and that pushes them to our direction, at least as of lately, the last 5 to 10 years. So that's a big piece too, that regardless of interest rates, prices, and what the market's doing here, if people truly need to leave where they're living for political, safety, whatever the reason is.
Insurance is a big one lately.
Cost, of course, financially is a big piece for sure. That's also adding to this influx. And then again, now we also have the numbers in terms of interest rates and builder incentives that are still out there, continuing to drive more buyer demand here. And that's why we aren't seeing massive drops like Arizona, Nevada, and other Texas, Florida, and other cities like that. Yeah,
and I think there's an interesting point here where I think as Boise locals, like me living here my whole life, and a lot of locals we hear say, Boise home prices are way too expensive. We're in a bubble, they're gonna crash. A piece about that though, and I talk about this a lot comparing it to California or Texas, is people look at just the purchase price of a home. But when you're coming from a state like California where the prices there are already more expensive, but on top of that, their insurance is $600, $500 a month versus here it's $600 a year. And all of the other things that come with the cost of housing, whether it's taxes, utilities, things like that, it makes Boise an area where even though the purchase price is so much more expensive, the overall cost of that house is so much more affordable. And I've used Texas in the past as an example because there's certain parts of Texas where essentially you have a $520,000 house in Texas and a $600,000 house in Boise, and on a monthly basis they cost the exact same. So like just looking at purchase price, they look like it'd be way cheaper to live in Texas, but it's actually not. And so I'm saying all of that to show that people are leaving their states. It's going to continue to happen unless something changes. And whether or not you think prices in Boise are too high or not, the reality is that people are going to continue to move here that can afford it and that it is affordable for them. And so it's hard to get over that when you've lived in Boise your entire life, but it is just a reality, and that's a reason why Boise's been ranked as the #1 city to have $1 million home value. It's the reason why some of the other things that are coming that I think we'll end up talking about later in this video, like the Micron expansions, there's other outside sources for Boise outside of just home price and interest rates and the local job market. So yeah, just wanted to hit on that because it is an important thing to talk about.
It is. It's just the hard facts, and it sucks. I mean, I'm sure we both wish, and everyone wishes that it wasn't the case, and we did have prices significantly lower, and more of you had opportunities to potentially own a home. But again, that's wishes. That's not necessarily what's happening or what's going to continue to happen in the future. We are just looking at the stats. The median home price in 2011 was $133,000.
Yeah, the median.
The median home price, $133,000. Now we're in the 550s to 600s, just depending on what part of town. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely insane. But it's justified because one, people are affording that, and two, this area is in extremely high demand for a plethora of reasons, and that's why we're here, and probably why a lot of you watching are living here too.
100%, yeah. And I'm going to use this. We're sitting in a home right now that's 2,700 square feet, new construction, for just over $400,000. So subscribe to the channel because we're going to be touring these homes and showing them.
There are affordable options for a lot of you out there, and you might be surprised.
Exactly. So, and the key is just you have to get your foot in the door. So anyway, watch out for that video, subscribe to the channel. But the other part of interest rates that we wanted to talk about before we go into these most popular questions, where we'll just have a question answered and then we'll answer as if you were sitting here as a client. But the other part is a lot of these incentives that builders are offering. I've noticed this month there's been a few more coming out where they're offering 4.99% or 3.99% interest rates to purchase one of their new construction homes. On the paper it looks good.
Yes, great marketing.
Yes, but want to break that down for you guys because there's some things to know around that interest rate as well as just incentives in general. But 4.99%. Is it actually 4.99%?
Yeah, and that's the kicker there is no. So that's where these builders have different tools to play with, and right now the marketing strategy for a lot is to push out this really low promotional interest rate. But behind that, and of course they explain this to you, it's not a trick, it's just how to get you in the door. But behind that is, well, realistically it's the par rate, but we're using the incentive to buy it down for you. So now instead of you using $20,000 or $25,000 for your own choices, whether it's interest rate, closing costs, upgrades in the home, they're just using that to buy the rate down for you automatically. So is it anything different than we've seen before? No, but
and advice for all of you guys, when you do see that, look in the fine print. There's usually an asterisk that says APR, and it usually ends up for like a 4.99. It usually ends up being like a 5.2 or a 5.5 because APR. I mean, it's just a little bit of a trick in interest rates, whether it's your credit card or your car. There's your base rate and then there's your APR rate. And so it ends up usually being actually in the low to mid fives. So a little bit of a trick there. But that I think is the two key pieces to know about that when you do see that number. It's still a great interest rate, and there are some scenarios where it does make sense. I'd say the majority of the time, there's builders that are offering $25,000, $30,000, and we see that if you just work with a lender outside of the builder, you can oftentimes get that same interest rate and have a little bit extra left over to cover closing costs and stuff like that. As an example, just had somebody with a builder who the builder was offering $15,000 as an incentive to use their lender. We got a quote. That lender was going to cost about $14,000 to use that lender, more than the lender that we had been working with previously. So there's some incentives here too, where a lot of times it's more expensive to use the builder's lender, even though you get, the $5,000 extra dangled in front of you.
Yeah, and this is where a lot of people, unless you do it frequently or are able to work with agents like ourselves that know these things, mortgage lenders can play around with the interest rates and numbers. It's not, this is what you get, this is what you give. They do have the ability to increase, decrease, and things like that. Yeah. So a lot of times, and again, not all the time, with preferred lenders or builder lenders, they're going to offer a $5,000 or a $10,000 promotion, but their starting number is that much higher than some of the other lenders we work with. Yeah. So that $5,000 or $10,000 now just brings you even. So essentially, it's a wash. Yeah. And sometimes it's actually even worse than a wash, where that $10,000 doesn't even get them to the other lender. Yeah. So in any case, don't just go get too excited about the numbers. Verify, work with people who can help advise you, and then figure out the best situation.
Yeah, and just a quick thing on there, like interest rates are different with every lender you go with. There's so many variables there. So even when you see the average interest rate right now is 6.5%, for you in your particular situation, that might not be the case. It could be higher, it could be lower, depending on your personal scenario and the lender that you choose to work with, because even lenders have different interest rates based on the products that they're using. So just know that when you're looking at lenders, there's an important piece there and some helpful. It's helpful to have somebody advise you on where to go and how to figure those things out. The other piece of the incentives is just the general incentives that we've talked about. So in August, builders do still have their incentives around. Most of them haven't really dropped them. I'd say one thing I did notice in August is in July, I was noticing a little bit of pocket incentives where I was getting texts from agents saying, hey, we're not advertising this, but we're giving an extra $10,000 for the last 2 weeks of July. That hasn't happened in August. So I guess that would be the one caveat where there has been some incentives going away. But from just a pure marketing standpoint, the incentives have stayed the same.
For sure. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Very similar. I would expect them to continue. We'll comment on what we think the next month is going to bring when we answer some of those most asked questions here in a second.
100%. Yeah. And then one final point before we go into the questions. As we were filming this, I got a text from a builder who said there's very few lots left in a particular subdivision, and then in the other one that they're building, they're going to be doing a price increase next week.
Yeah, wild.
So just to show that is happening across the valley in certain pockets. And so this activity we've seen over these last 2 weeks with just this 0.5% drop is already affecting prices and the inventory piece, where they sold enough houses this month that they're texting me saying, hey, do you have clients? Because we don't have very many left in this particular subdivision. So now we'll go into the questions. Most asked questions, sit down as if you guys were sitting here and we were answering them over coffee. Okay, now to the questions. One of the first questions, we'll just go question by question, is the Boise real estate market slowing down or booming? I think is one we get a lot, like what's happening in the market. I'd say.
What month is it?
Depends on the day.
I mean, but we laugh, but it is true actually. So if you're asking on a month-to-month basis, it depends on the month. We've had slow months this year. We've had really busy months over the course of the year. And I really hope most of you aren't making decisions on a month-to-month change in the market. But over the course of the year, I would say neither. Not really cooling down, not necessarily booming, staying very, very steady and strong with, again, months of a little bit slower than expected and months like this month right now, very, very busier than expected.
Yeah, Boise market's very bipolar.
Yes.
And how I usually answer this question is it stayed very, very steady, and all it is going to take for Boise is for one twig to fall, and then the rest will. And what I mean by that is we've seen little things change, right? Like when Trump was elected, it started to boom. And then the tariffs hit, and then it started to slow down.
Yep.
And then this month, interest rates went down 0.25%, and it's starting to pick up again. But all it's going to take for Boise, and what I mean by that, like the shoe to drop, is either interest rates, if they were to go down a full percent and stay a full percent.
My goodness.
That would be enough for Boise's market to really boom,
Yep.
like more long term. Or like with this Micron expansion that we've talked about in other videos, once that's more of a steady, like we know that's coming. But if nothing changes until Micron gets here, that's another piece that can have that happen, or even outside states. Like if the insurance issue in California falls apart like it's kind of trending towards, and they can't come up with agreement, and everything that's happening there, insurance across the entire state starts getting more expensive for every single person. It's things like that if it just takes one little tweak, then we could see a continuously booming market.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So we have such a small area still compared to a lot of these cities feeding us or having people coming in, that a small change or influx of people makes a drastic change in the market. Again, roughly 1,000 homes, available, give or whatever the number is, or the months of inventory being 3 months or a little under. The second we get a one wave and we can't catch up, if we're at 2 months of inventory, 1 month of inventory, prices are going to start going up very quickly again.
Yeah, I mean, even just within this 2 weeks, I told you that agent texted me that prices are going up in their community.
Yep.
We've had other new construction communities that have been going up over the last month. So if you get a big increase or a big drop in interest rates to do that, then it would boom. Now, I guess what would cause Boise to slow down?
Sure.
Typically, I mean, there's all of the normal things that if we go into a major war, if the stock market crashes, if anything like that happens, that's going to affect everybody. So Boise would get affected. But I'd say where Boise is different is that even right now, Florida, Texas, parts of California, Oregon, Washington, home prices are going down, and Boise is not. And so there's very few things for Boise outside of the national effective things that are actually going to affect the Boise real estate market.
I'm trying to think of different things, and I mean, national black swan events, of course, is going to affect everything, but just Boise specifically. I mean, I could make up some things, alien invasion, stuff like that, but I just, there's nothing realistic that I can come up with that wouldn't be, again, affecting things nationwide, but just specifically to this area. I can't think of it.
There's only one thing that I can kind of think of that I've been starting to notice over the last 6 months, and that is I've noticed new builders coming into Boise.
Okay.
It hasn't happened yet, but there is I'd say a slight risk over the next 5 to 10 years that if we do get too many new builders coming into Boise and flooding the market with new construction homes, that could have the potential for home prices to stay steady or go down. If we have too much inventory, similar to like 2008, 2009, there's so many new construction homes, and then when everything dropped, then we're screwed. That's the only thing I can think of that I've been keeping tabs on to try and notice what has happened so that we can advise, people well. But other than that, I can't really think of anything else. So that's the answer to that question. The next one would be like, is there a housing shortage? So kind of along these same lines. A little bit.
Yeah, shortage is a strong word, but I would say it's definitely a shortage, closer to a shortage than a surplus. And this is housing in general. This is rental housing. This is obviously purchase housing. And on both sides, it's still a very, very busy market. So rental vacancies in most areas are still less than 2%, 1 to 3%, just depending on where you're at. And that was after, and maybe we even had an earlier video on it, maybe a year or 2 or 3 years ago, where we had a huge increase in multifamily development and construction. Everyone was like, oh man, oversaturated. There's never going to be enough people for that. It's, and I'm surprised by it as well, actually. I thought they overbuilt for sure. A lot of those places are pretty well filled. They're not cutting prices like they were at some point, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. Rental prices are increasing, and as we're seeing again, this might be the start of it. Home prices we're going to start to see increasing too, if things trend the same way they are this last month.
Yeah. I mean, even this year with it being a slower market, home prices over the last 12 months have still gone up.
Yep.
It's not crazy, and Boise's bipolar in month to month, but also area to area.
Yes.
There's some communities that have gone down.
Yep.
And there's some that have gone way up, and depends on which suburb you're in and then which part of the suburb you're in. And so that's where knowing where you're buying and having somebody or doing your research to figure out which pockets are going to be better are good to do. So yeah, housing shortage, nothing crazy, right? But along the same lines on housing shortage is we always get the salaries in Boise versus the home prices, and part of that can relate to a housing shortage because there's a shortage of affordable housing for the prices and salaries in the Boise area, where rent prices are higher and buying homes are higher. Boise's trying to catch up from what I can tell, and we'll see what happens. I think if the Boise market can slow down a little bit, the businesses here are slightly forced to just continue to increase their prices. But Boise we talked about it earlier, home prices in 2011, which was 15 years ago, that's not that long ago.
I know.
We're 130,000.
Yep.
So they've almost quadrupled, plus some. And you just can't businesses can't keep up with that in the Boise area. And so. Yeah,
exactly. It does play into the housing stuff a little bit, of course, salaries and wages, but I don't know, someone maybe out there, I don't know the entire country like the back of my hand, someone out there name a city that's growing that doesn't have an affordability issue. Yeah. I don't think there is one. So sure, it's a problem and should be things we help to think about and address, but I don't know, can you avoid that?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because you even look at San Francisco is used a lot, right?
Yeah.
You can buy a 900 square foot home in San Francisco for $1.5 million, and it's not new. And the median salary there was, I don't know what it is exactly, but probably around 160,000. So double Boise. Yeah. But their home prices are more than double. Yeah. And that doesn't factor in all the other costs of living too. So yeah, it is a good point. It's like any desirable place to live, it's generally the case. Boise is just slightly worse from what we've gathered. So, and I'd say along these lines, another big question we get is, can I even afford a house? What can I afford in a house? Especially for those of you who are local, first-time home buyers, or you have lived in a house for 10 years and you have a 2% interest rate. You don't know what you can afford. Yep.
And honestly, the simple answer is let's check and find out, because a lot of people think that at first and then realize, they can, whether it's whether you can get the home you need or want's a different story, but more people than not can, and it's worth investigating. Again, talking to people like us, and then obviously connecting with a mortgage lender to run legitimate, the actual numbers and bank statements, all that stuff. But again, we've had many scenarios over the course of the last few years and beyond where people are like, I'm renting, I feel like I'm stuck there. I would love to own a home. I believe in the short-term and long-term benefits, but it just seems so far out of reach because I don't have 20% down payment saved. I'm not making $200,000 a year. And then we go to start running some numbers, figuring out what their finances look like, and come to find out they can, and it does fit their budget, and ideally, or we usually can, find a home that is suitable, and getting that first foot in the door, and then come 2 to 3 years later, like some of the clients I have this year, now they're buying their next home. And it's just, it truly works out that way. So doing what you can to get your foot in the door at the beginning, at whatever time that is, 3 years ago, this year, a year from now, it truly makes a huge difference.
100%. And generally the advice I give on this question, and there's a caveat here with all of you guys have your own individual situations, and there are a lot of pieces that have to come into play with debts, credit scores, all of this. But the general advice that I give is don't look at it as a purchase price, look at it as what your loan amount would be. So the purchase price minus whatever down payment that you have saved up. In general, it's around $700 a month for every $100,000 that you have in loan amount. So do the math there. And then good financial literacy, healthy finances is to try and keep your monthly housing costs at, below, or somewhat around 30% of your monthly income after taxes. So you take your monthly income, whatever you're bringing home every month, multiply that by 30% to figure out right around where your mortgage payment should be or your rent payment should be. This goes for rent too. And then do the math on a purchase price, what your loan amount would be, and multiply that by 700. That's what I've found to be a very good litmus test.
Sure.
To at least get a gauge of, am I in the ballpark to look further into it. So that would be the advice that I give people when I sit down to give a rough number, and then we'll dive into details. Obviously the lenders are the ones that will be able to give you exact numbers and do that. But that's the answer that I give most people. So.
Yeah, yep. And again, we won't go into it. Maybe it's a whole nother video we'll do. I don't know. We'll talk about it. But how to get creative to make it work. If you're right on the cusp, what can you do to get just over that hump? Whether it's an initial, a slightly larger down payment from outside sources, blah blah blah, or bringing in a roommate. Different ways again to get your foot in the door, still make a smart financial decision. But if you're right there, there's a lot of different things. I mean, things that I've personally done on personal homes and investment properties where I've had to get creative just to make it work, and it's worked out great long term.
Yeah, exactly. Next one is, why should I use an agent to buy new construction homes? Yeah,
for sure. And honestly, and maybe you will, but I'm not even going to necessarily say us. Hopefully you guys trust and believe in what we're able to do, but I'm just going to talk in generalities why you should use an agent when purchasing or looking at new construction home, whether it's us or someone else you're already connected with. And a lot of different reasons. The first very simple one is, one, by not using one, there isn't going to be a benefit to you. I would say there might be a few out there, and depending on the sales rep and how salesy they might be, they might try and coerce you and say, oh, we'll get you the best deal, or we're going to discount, or we're going to, again, kick back some sort of incentive that you wouldn't get if you brought your own agent. Out here, that doesn't really happen. I'd say most builders, if not, most builders even state up front, like, you can come unrepresented, you can come represent yourself, work directly with our sales team. You aren't going to get anything different or better by doing that. So one, there isn't really a benefit in doing it. And two, there are many benefits in having your own representation, on the financial side, on the service side, as well as just on the overall experience side, working with someone that's truly in your corner versus relying on the builder and the sales representative for that builder to view your best interest when it's impossible to do that because they are working for the person you're buying a home from.
100%.
Yeah.
The experience is important, and the other side is the protection side of it too, right? So builders, whether they tell you they have your best interest at or not, there's a lot of great sales reps out there that I trust, and they do treat people with honesty, and they help advise them.
And honestly, a lot of them don't feel comfortable when a buyer comes in and says, I don't have an agent, I want to work with you. They're like, oh, are you sure about that? Because they know that's probably not the best idea.
Yes. But there are, I'd say, a lot of cases where they are still representing the builder.
Yes.
And so things that agents know you can ask for or you can push back on, they're going to tell you this is the way it is, this is the way the builder goes, and there's no way around it. And so there's a lot of aspects with that, whether it's things that they might fix and they say they can't fix that's not a part of the process, and we know they can, whether it's you need to back out of a contract and for serious reasons. We've had some crazy stories. And they say, oh nope, sorry, that's not a good reason. We're here to push back, and because we know that that's a viable reason. There's a lot of different scenarios around that. So you have protection and you have somebody fighting for you. That's another big piece of it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where, on the non-monetary side, having someone in your corner, or again, fighting and pushing for you, Hopefully it never comes to something like that, but
Yeah.
those are where the big financial issues could come up when you have $50,000 of earnest money in a custom home and something happens and changes and the builder says, no, that's not refundable. And maybe as agents, we're able to continue to push and force that to happen and then get it refundable. Like hopefully that never happens, but it does. It's actually happened this year with one of my clients. Yeah. And that's literally a $50,000 difference that may not have come back to them or been refunded if
It wouldn't have.
If they, the builder said no, and they're like, well, shoot, that's what it says. It's in the contract. That's it. We're screwed. And then also on the truly monetary side is we know what builders are offering, obviously publicly. A lot of times they're not offering or at least mentioning their legitimate full negotiation room publicly. We also know what other builders in the same area are doing, so we can negotiate with them because they need to stay competitive if they want to sell this home versus our clients going to another builder. So we typically can get you the best deals. We usually have the most insights. And another big one is for people that are coming out here or here currently that don't already know, I want this builder, this floor plan, this community. When you go into that sales office, they are going to say everything they can to pump up the builder that they're working for. Whereas we are more than able to, or the agent you're working with, help guide you through all the different builder options so you can actually figure out what's best for you and not just hear from the source of the salesperson saying, no, we're the best, we build the best, we have the best quality materials. Anyone can say that, but is it actually true? It's hard to say.
Who knows? Yeah. And keeping it to Boise's real estate market, it's so important, and why we get this question in the Boise market, because we're 60% new construction. Other markets across the nation don't have that as their base for their real estate market. And so it is even more important in this market to work with an agent that has a lot of experience with new construction and can speak to that. But it's also good to know if you are looking to buy or sell here, because it is such a big piece of it. And another, I'd say, monetary / non-monetary part of this is working with an agent who has experience working with a lot of new construction, is knowledgeable on them, but has also built good relationships. So as an example, for me personally, I've put in effort to try and build relationships with these sales reps, with these builders. And there are instances where I have been able to get clients early access to building homes on lots before the public has access to them. There are instances where I've gotten extra incentives that other agents wouldn't have been able to get. And there are other instances where purely just having a really good relationship with the builder, they are able to do things that I'd say if an agent didn't have that type of relationship, they wouldn't be able to do. And so whether it's us or somebody else, if you are looking for an agent for new construction, try and find somebody who does have experience in relationships with not just one builder, but all of the different builders, and can help out with a lot of those things that you just don't think of or wouldn't think are possible.
Yeah, off-market opportunities, and then also things that literally are not even available to the public. That's another specific scenario that's happening this week or last week with a builder in a very popular community, very popular builder. The only option that our clients had, and they want this specific thing, is a lot that's not released yet. It's not even platted and recorded, but it's coming in the next 1 or 2 months. Getting that under reservation before the entire section's even available to literally anyone else. And those are things that the relationship aspect of it really was the difference.
100%. Yeah. And if they didn't have an agent at all, that wouldn't have happened. Just point blank. So so those are all of the big pieces as far as using an agent for new construction specifically. And so just be cautious of that. Know what the benefits are and what the cons are, and what you're risking by not doing that. Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask. I mean, we are more than happy to field those questions directly. So if you aren't sure and you are, considering us as helping you buy or sell,
ask those questions. You know, we're not afraid to answer them. Obviously, we hope we're the right fit and we can show you and prove to you the value of earning your business. If it doesn't work out, you know, we're not going to be upset. You know, we appreciate the opportunity. So don't be afraid to, again, ask us directly what your concerns are, what your hesitations are, and, you know, we'll give you an answer. And if it works, then great. If not, we at least appreciate the conversation.
There was actually a piece that I missed too that's non-monetary, and part of it is when you're buying a home, there's a number of processes and things that you want to do, right? It's obviously getting in contract, you have inspections, you have walkthroughs, you have scheduling your signings and closing, you have the loan side of things too. When you have an agent outside of the sales rep, us as individual agents, we have systems in place, and we do this over and over, and we take on a lot of the burdens and stressors of scheduling out all of those things. So whether it's getting your inspectors scheduled, it's coordinating with the loan lender and the title company, it's reaching out to get your utilities, making sure you have all of that information. There's 100 different items during that home buying process that having an agent to just take care of all of that for you, or at least help you along that process, is really valuable. And you just don't get that in most cases when you use a builder's agent. So that would be the final piece. And then the last question, and what I think will end up probably being part of the title of this video for the market update is it better to buy in 2025 or to wait until 2026? That has been a big one, especially with a lot of these interest rate talks coming up lately.
Yep.
So
So two pieces to it, like, well, maybe, you know, plenty pieces. We like to talk sometimes, but in the simplest terms, situation independent, purely numbers, opportunity based. My opinion is 2025, between now and honestly like October, November, is my opinion a better time than waiting for 2026. And that would be because we are, again, at the lowest rates in the last 24, maybe 18 months, you know, whatever, the last 2 years. The incentives are almost maxed out from what we've seen the last 2 years. The inventory has not started to drop yet. So, I mean, just those three things are all going in a buyer's favor right now. Any one of those starts to change, obviously you have two of the three, or one of the three, or none of the three. So right now, 2025, I would say, is a better time to buy than 2026, situation independent. So that's where it leads to our true recommendations and advice to when we're working with someone specifically, is what does their situation lead to? Is it going to be drastically different between now and the start of 2026? Possibly, but probably not. So if you need to sell a home, you're not ready to move yet, your kids, you want to finish up school, the school year, those are all things that are super important from a personal perspective that we want to factor into helping you in your decision. So a loaded question, but that's my opinion at least. And I would agree, and it is a good point, because at the end of the day, like, me and Jesse's number one goal is to help people. It's not always to buy and sell houses. Like, if it is better for our clients or the people that we work with and hopefully have relationships with, if it's better for them to not buy or sell a house, we truly want that more than we want them to buy or sell a house. So that's where these individual scenarios, we're always trying to do it case by case and advise based on your individual situation. For this scenario, we'll just use the scenario of kind of what Jesse's saying, where it's, you have the ability to buy right now. There's nothing stopping you. You can do it. Everything works out great, and you could buy in 2026 and wait 6 months. A piece that we didn't touch on too much, or Jesse didn't just touch on, was the interest rate aspect. Obviously, incentives and home prices are largely affected by that. And so we do have this meeting in September that we talked about earlier in this video, but we also have the piece of where Trump is essentially firing Jerome Powell in 2026 and is going to insert, from what it looks like, somebody that he deems will just drop interest rates when Trump wants him to. So if that does go the way that he wants it to, and mortgage rates do come down in 2026 more so than they are now, that's another factor. You also have the Micron
plant for the $15 billion, not the $50 billion that's going to come later, but the $15 billion plan that will be done in early 2027, possibly late 2026. That's going to impact the real estate market. We already know, like in November, it looks like they're going to start ramping up hiring, and all of 2026, they'll probably start doing that process too. So you have outside factors, and in my personal opinion, the other states that keep doing things to push people out, I see that just continuing to go downhill. So I don't think it's going to be getting any better. It seems like lately, the more and more people I talk to, where it used to be they were calling and they're like, hey, I want to move. Now they're calling over the last few months, and I've noticed they're saying, I want to move, and everybody in my neighborhood is also wanting to move.
Yes.
I have noticed a significant increase in those conversations where everybody is just waiting until they have either the money saved up or the opportunity to get moved over to Boise or other states. So that is only going to increase as these other states continue to go downhill and be bad places to live. So.
Yep, and again, with all those different pieces, interest rates being a big piece, obviously more buyer demand coming in. We are thinking and expecting, again, 2026 to be busier, or at least continue heading in that direction. And the other builder incentive part of it is, even if it was not the end of 2026, let's say it's now or spring of 2026, as interest rates even just trickle down 1/10%, 1/4%, 0.5%, those incentives are going to start decreasing as well. And honestly, the bigger impact is the large amount of incentives we have right now is more valuable than a 0.25% decrease on the interest rate, because you can use that money significantly further than a 0.25%. So as an incentive goes from 30,000 to 50,000, you know, that'd be equivalent to almost 0.75% change, which I don't think we're going to see. Those incentives will decrease that quickly and that much. You know, possibly through the rest of this year. With
$20,000 now for an incentive, you can almost buy down a full percent. And if interest rates drop 0.5% in 6 months, and now you have zero incentive, or even if you have $10,000 incentive, you would have had a better interest rate today, and you would have had a better purchase price today. So, and in the previous market update, we went through a whole calculator, and if you guys want access to the calculator, it shows you the equity you would miss out on, how it would take 10 years to recoup what you missed out on by waiting 6 months, 9 months, all of that. So there's plenty of tools and data to actually just run the numbers, and that's where sitting down for individuals is a big key. But
so to wrap it up, at least, perfect scenario, situation independent, buying now, specifically building a home, locking in your price, locking in your lot, locking in your incentive, 8 to 9 months, those incentives might go down, boom, you just got a better deal. Those prices might go up, boom, you just got a better deal. Those interest rates might come down, boom, you just got a better deal. That would be the perfect scenario if someone had the flexibility to do whatever, is lock in a home right now, build it, move in 8 to 9 months.
100%.
But just our opinion.
And if you guys want to get more updated on that big Micron announcement, watch this video here. Me and Jesse go through the $50 billion extra expansion on Micron and how much of an impact that's probably going to have on the Boise market. Thank you guys for watching.